Hi, everybody. So, to be honest, in this age of broken politics, I have a very low tolerance for most forms of political activism. For me, it makes very little sense to try to heal the wounds inflicted by politics by pushing ourselves and others to become more and more political. And I often feel quite alone in this. When I came to Scotland, it was my intention to step out of a way of living that is seen as the norm by most of the so-called developed world. I no longer wanted to strengthen the power of that norm with my own acquiescence to it. I had this fanciful idea. What if I am a free being who can live as I please? What if I simply leave those who believe that broken politics are better than no politics to carry on as they are, while I simply forget about that world and get on with living my life in a way that makes sense to me? And what if I don't need to ask anybody's permission? The thing is, I don't believe in changing the world. I believe in changing myself. Not surprisingly, making that decision has brought me into contact with other people who are willing to step out of the norm and follow their hearts.
Watching these seasons always moving and the plants and everything responding to it, and you're responding to it, that seems to be a big motivator for me with these lifestyles. I sort of feel like I can't not do that now. It feels too painful to be cut off from this.
This episode of Candygram is a film review. All of these images come from a film which I feel more than a little professional jealousy for. I've been making films for 6 years now and still feel very much in my apprenticeship. This film, We the Uncivilised, was made by Lily and Pete Sequoia. It's the first film they have ever made, and the filmmaker in me feels kind of distressed that their first film should be as good as it is. Like me, Lily and Pete decided to step out of the norm. They took to living in a van, and as they drove around Britain, visiting communities that are living alternative lifestyles to the norm, they filmed their journey and the people they met along the way. I've seen the film a few times now with different sized audiences, and I've observed how those audiences have been left at the end of the film with powerful emotions that they can barely articulate even to themselves until they've had some time to digest it. And in witnessing this, I've had to ask myself, what are the magical ingredients that Lily and Pete managed to bring together in order to create this effect?
Getting all the dew off these instead.
Yeah, and what are you doing with the dew?
Drinking it.
You're drinking dewdrops.
Yeah, it's yummy. It makes it even a little bit spicy.
So where does the power of We the Uncivilised really come from? Lily and Pete do a solid enough job of filming and editing. They make nice choices in deciding what to put in, what to leave out, what music to use, all of that. For a debut film, their skills are good enough to be impressive. And yet, they're hardly virtuoso. It seems to me that the power of the film comes from something more fundamental. It comes from who Lily and Pete are as people.
When Pete walked into the gym where I worked on a summer's day in August, something alchemical happened. Suddenly, he was someone inviting me to go deeper, to ask the questions that I wasn't strong enough to ask on my own, and someone who, like me, was yearning for life's adventure.
Shortly after we were married, and as we started out our new life together, we made another life-changing decision and moved into an old truck which we'd made our home. Enlivened by the freedom and simplicity of this new life, we also felt increasingly at odds with our cultural story.
They don't preach. They are utterly unpretentious. They simply care.
This longing to connect to the land and nature was a thread that seemed to weave together all the voices we were meeting on our journey. This desire to be in relationship with the world beyond the city walls had transported me and Lily from the comforts of bricks and mortar to a more elemental life. But as we searched for ways to meet our needs for food, warmth and shelter, it was becoming clear that at some point our land and our time had already been taken from us.
And as they journey in search of the answers to the big questions of our time, they inevitably draw to themselves other people who are unpretentious and who simply care. And this is a terribly poignant thing for me. In this world of industrial scale media, where the personalities that are put on display must either be finely polished or morbidly extreme, it can be a painful thing to see that, yes, actually there are many, many unpretentious, caring people everywhere you go, but they're invisible to the norm of society. They're there in abundance, they are the sweetest people to spend time with, and they are very easy to find, but only if you go looking for them. These people offer ways of living in the world that are humane and beautiful and readily accessible, and yet, to the mainstream, they are virtually invisible. And if I dwell on that for too long, it becomes dreadfully painful, and I have to remind myself that I'm not responsible for the entire human race.
People who had access to common land could support themselves quite easily and weren't inclined to become wage labourers. Nobody really wanted to work in the factory. Nobody in their right mind would have wanted to work in a factory. So you had to create a situation where they had to work in the factories, and the best way to do that was to confiscate the land from them, and that's effectively what happened through the enclosures and through the Enclosure Act. This left large numbers of people without that fundamental resource base and insecure and in need of paid labour, basically alienated from the land. And this was fodder for the industrial system.
This world can seem like a crazy, fucked up place, especially if you consume mainstream media on a daily basis. But there is actually plenty of sanity out there if you are sane enough and brave enough to go find it and say hello.
We went to visit Land Matters in Devon, a permaculture community living and working on the land they had bought collectively.
We were all really keen to do permaculture, and we all had some experience, but there's so much to learn and so much to do. It was great that we had Patrick.
In permaculture, we have something called the 12-month rule, which is when you move into a new place, don't do anything permanent for the first 12 months. And, you know, it doesn't mean don't do anything at all, but don't do anything permanent, like planting trees, making structures, fences, paths, or trackways, or anything like that. And so this is to allow time for observation. That receptive time, which is so important and is so downgraded in our culture, you know, where we always want to be active, we always want to be doing something. And in fact, the most important thing is to tune into the characteristics, to observe the characteristics of the land, and to listen to the people who are inhabiting that land with you, whether it's your family or a larger community, and then start to make decisions and to make changes after that.
So if any of you watching this feel crushed by the pressure of living within the accepted parameters of the norm, take heart and watch We the Uncivilised. I highly recommend it. There's a link in the description box below. What about a video log, for goodness sake? I mean, you've got masses and masses of material, and it's very easy to do a weekly thing where you just do a little to camera. Hi everybody, this is what I want to talk about today. Is a bit of footage that we did last year or last month or whatever, and it's just what I want to talk about this week. I mean, why are you guys not doing that?
Why are we not doing it now?
Yeah.
It's called 2-year-old daughter, national tour, no internet, limited power.
Excuses.
Burnout.
Say yes to everything. I think, equally, it's taken its toll on Lily and I. This whole journey, we're fine in the sense that we're holding together, but it's been really hard, to spend our lives living in this space, raising a child, making a film, editing the film, and spending pretty much every day with each other. It's been really hard. And I think this tour we've just been getting by, haven't we? We've, mechanical things going wrong and this, so it's been quite a lot. So the thought of then getting a camera out each week and having a check into the camera and saying this has happened, yeah.
We probably should have, but it just felt
probably
too
should have,
overwhelming.
but now you make us feel really bad about it.
It's time to redeem yourself.
It's time to redeem ourselves on the way back down. Yeah.
We're going to see a hedgehog.
Some people tell me that I'm crazy, 'cause I do things that don't fit in with the rest of society. Like my love of small spaces, my room ain't too large. I just built me a box underneath the house off the corner of my garage. But the edge is where it's at, and it's easy to create. And my mama always said, if you're not living on the edge, then you're taking up too much space. I've been looking to settle down, maybe find someplace nice where I can get my hand on some marginal land and turn it into paradise. The smaller the better, and I don't care if it's bad. Well, I guess I'm the kind of fella who'll always be a fringe dweller. Just do the best I can with what I have, because the edge is where it's at, and it's the most productive.